Welcome back to Strength Coach Tutorials, and in today's tutorial we're going to start a new series on how to build this set and rep planning tool. And this tool has a couple of neat features. Number one, it will allow you to choose whether you are using a warm-up or a working set, and the data down below will update automatically. Number two, you're going to be able to enter percentages, and then it will calculate a relative intensity for you and automatically color code that based on a scale that we can set. Number three, we're going to have a whole bunch of stats that we calculate off of our set and rep schemes. So we have set data, rep data, intensity data, and lifting metrics. And then number four is we're going to create a dynamic little chart down here that's going to allow me to choose different metrics and have a chart that automatically updates so that we can take a deeper dive into some of our set and rep schemes and see what they look like. So let's get into it. Let's start to put together this set and rep planning tool here. And you can see I've gone ahead and just taken a blank sheet, but outlined the cells where we're going to put a lot of the values that we're going to be using for this tool. The first thing I'll say is that if you want to, or if you don't want to wait for the videos and you want to just have this tool available, I'll make it available for sale on my website at DSMStrength.com. And you can purchase the sheet there, and it'll be completely unlocked, and you'll be able to just see what all the formulas are and kind of play around with it as you want. But if you want to create it for yourself, stick around and we'll go through the series and kind of do that. So like I said, I've gone ahead and just outlined the cells where we're going to put everything. So we're just going to start by filling these cells in. So the first thing I want to do is up the side here. I'm just going to merge these cells. So if I just merge there and I type set and rep cycle, and again, this is just my terminology, but that's something that I would type in there. And then I'm going to actually just change the text. So if I select that cell, there's an option up here to switch which way the text actually goes. And then if I just play around with it, I can get that to kind of go in the middle there. And then over here, I'm going to merge these cells, and I'm going to call this work or warm up. And I want to make it available to have 12 sets. So I'll put set 1, set 2, set 3. And then Excel's pretty smart. It'll know that if I drag those down, I can actually put in my sets, and that's actually giving me 13. So I'm going to just delete this last one here. Hold on one sec. So I'll delete that last one. And then, so I'll put this back and fix these borders here. Okay, so we're back to normal here. And then in here, I'm going to do a data validation, so I'll wait a second before I do that. Up top, I want to outline my weeks. So if I merge these cells, and I can type in week 1, and then merge these cells, week 2, merge these cells, week 3, and then merge these cells, week 4. Okay, and then from there, I'm just going to put in my values up top here. So what I would usually put in would be reps, percentage, and then what I would call relative percentage or relative intensity. And I'm just going to center that so that it looks better and copy that across. And then from there, I'll just kind of make everything look a little bit better. So I'm going to put some thicker borders around the side here. And I just like the thick borders whenever I'm trying to draw attention to something. I think it makes it stand out a little bit more. So I'll put it on the whole sheet there, and then I'll put some thicker borders in the middle here. I want one, not there. I'll go along this side, and then thick one in the middle there, and then I'll just fix this one up. And then these I want to be thick borders all the way through. So that cleans that up quite a lot. And then I actually want thick borders to separate these. So as I'm highlighting these, I'm selecting the different boxes. I'm just holding down Control so that it highlights this group of cells and then creates another selection around this group of cells so that it's effectively making 4 boxes as opposed to one complete group of cells. And then when I put the thick borders around, it's going to look at those as separate boxes and just kind of do the outsides there. So it's just a little trick in the middle. And then for our sheet, we had thinner borders kind of throughout the middle. So there's no good option for that. I'll just do it myself. I'll select the thin borders and just put them in the middle there. And then that looks good. And an easier way to do it too is if I just copy and paste this over, it'll paste the format kind of the way we want. And then in order to get the fonts the way I want, I'm just going to center all these texts and make sure they're in the middle. And I'm going to select a new font, maybe Open Sans. And maybe I'll just bold that so they all look good. And that looks a lot better to me. So this is going to be our starting point. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to create a data validation in here that actually allows us to pick whether it's a working set or a warm-up set. And the terminology you use can be anything you want, but I'm just going to use these two terms for my sheet because that's the terminology I would use when I'm programming. So like we've done so many times in the different videos, we'd go data validation, and I'm going to do a list, but this time I'm going to just choose 2 words. So I'm going to put warm-up, comma, and then comma, working set. And what this is going to do is when I hit OK, it's just going to have those 2 options for me to choose from. So I can either choose warm-up or working set. And another little trick is you can see that working set actually bleeds over. And we could easily shrink the font down, right? But I like it to be 11. So if I go into this cell here and I right click on it and I go down to Format Cells, there's actually under the Alignment tab going to be an option to click Shrink to Fit. And what that's going to do is automatically shrink the text in the cell or automatically make it a smaller font so that it fits. So when I click this, you can see that the working set actually shrinks a little bit where warm-up stays the same. So I'm going to center those so those look good. Okay, so from here now, it's a matter of kind of creating our ability to look up a relative intensity and then pull out a value based on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be programming warm-up sets for my first 4 sets. And something I might do, I might go 5, 5, 5, 5, and then the intensity I work at might be something like 47.5%, 60%, 70%, and 77.5%. And that might be my actual intensities that I want to use. Now the percentages look a little bit funky, so I'm just going to shrink those down one so that we only have just 1.5. But then the functionality that I want is I actually want to convert that to a relative intensity, which would essentially be whatever value I have in here. For example, 5 reps. I want to be able to look up, okay, so 5 reps, that RM would be about 86%. And then I want to multiply that by 47.5% to get what the relative intensity would be there. Okay, so I'm going to type this number back in because it got taken away, and that's okay. So what I essentially have down the side here is a 1RM percentage chart. And this particular one is taken from Mladen Jovanović's work, but you can use whatever one that you would base your 1RM calculations off of. So what I need to do is create this or change this to a table so that I'm actually able to reference these values pretty easily. So I'm going to just take these values and hit Format as Table. I am going to select this one here, and my table does have headers because I have them up there at the top, and I'll hit OK. And I don't really want this to look like a table, so I'm going to choose this formatting where now it just looks like cells on our sheet. And when I click here, it's going to give me a table design option. I'm going to take away the filter buttons because there's no reason for me to filter anything. And so now I have this table that I can use. And I'm going to rename this table. And again, to do that, where if you click anywhere in the table, go to table design and go over to table name on the left-hand side here. I'm going to call it table percent. And again, whenever I have a table, I'll name it TBL and then whatever I want that table to represent. So if I hit enter there, this is now table percent. So I have now a reference that I can use to look up a value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a function here called xlookup. So equals xlookup. And what it's going to ask me for is what is the value I want to look up. So I want to look up this 5. And that is stored in E6. So I'll type in E6. And I know that it's always going to be stored in E6 in this case. So I'm going to put a $sign around there. Actually, I'll leave the $sign out for now, and I'll show you why in a second. And then I'm going to hit comma. Where do I want to look that up? I want to look it up under table percent. So I'll type TBL percent and then the square bracket. And I want to look it up in the reps category. So I'll double click there and close that off. And what do I actually want to return? Well, I want to return the percentage category. So I'll type in TBL percent. Okay. And square bracket. And I'll return the percentage. Close that off. And then if not found, well, it will be found if I use a rep that's in there. We can go up to 20. And then I can probably close this off and hit OK. So what you'll notice is when I type in 5, that's going to give me the 86%. And if I convert these to a percent, you'll see that kind of work. And then I'll put that down one so that it matches. So if I'm programming on reps of 5, it's actually going to give me a relative percent 1RM of 86%. And for example, if I put 10 in there, it's going to give me 75%. Okay, so we'll put it back to 5. I'm going to copy this, and I should be able to paste it all the way down. And you can see it's going to give me some NAs because there's nothing there for it to reference. And if I copy this back over and I right click, paste the formatting, it'll make the formatting look good again. Okay, so what we have to be able to do now is get rid of these NA values. So an easy way to do that is if I just take this formula and I wrap it in something called an if error formula. So at the beginning, I'm going to put if error and hit bracket. And I go right to the end of the formula and I put comma. It's going to ask me what to do if there's an error. Double quotations means blank cell, and hit enter. So now what you'll see when there's nothing in the rep category, it's going to give me nothing, which is what we want, right? We don't want the cell to show anything if there's no reps. But then the next thing we have to take care of is if there's nothing in the percentage category, it's still going to look this up, and I don't want a relative intensity I don't want there to be an intensity in there if I don't have anything in the percentage category. Okay, so if I put this back, what I want this to actually do is I want it to show a blank. So first let's convert it to a relative intensity, and how we're going to do that is all I'm going to do is take this xlookup formula, and I'm actually going to put that in its own bracket. And I'm going to multiply that times this value here. I'll put the whole thing. And then if I hit OK, what it's going to do is actually give me the relative intensity of that now. So what I'm doing is the value that I look up, the 86% or the 0.86, I'm multiplying that by the 47.5 to give me an actual relative intensity. But what you'll see now, what I was talking about, is if I go here, it's going to give me a 0. And I want to get rid of that 0. Okay, so I'll put the 47.5 back in. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to wrap this formula now in an if statement. Okay, and what that's going to do is it's going to ask me, if this is true, what do you want me to do? If it's not, what do you want me to do? Okay, and what I want it to look for, so I'm going to put if, and I'm going to use a formula called is blank. And what that's going to do is check to see whether the percentage column is blank. So I'm going to put is blank, and then where I want it to look is in F6. Close that off, and if that's blank, what I want it to do, now it's going to say what do I want it to do if it's true. So if it's blank, I want it to show nothing. But if it isn't blank, because I know I'm going to only put percentages in there, I want it to show this X lookup percentage multiplied by the percentage that we've typed in. And then I have to close that whole thing off around here. And you'll notice in Excel, when you have brackets, the different colored brackets match up with each other. So for example, this red bracket here matches up with the red just beneath the if statement, and the black at the end matches up with the if error. And that's how you know if you have enough brackets in your formula. So when I hit enter, it's still going to give me the same value if you've programmed everything correctly. But if I take the formula out of here, it's going to go blank. And that looks a lot more visually appealing when we're actually programming this out. And because I've left all of these formulas open so that the references are always going to change when I paste them in, I should be able to drag this formula down, and it should work all the way through. And I should be able to, well, there's no formula here to drag down, but I'm going to fix the formatting now. So I'm going to highlight all the cells, and I'll go into more borders, and I'll put my borders back the way that I want them. Hit OK. And I'll turn these all to a percentage and shrink them down. So that works pretty well. And then if we were to start programming, say 2s down here, and we wanted them to work at 100%, we can tell that this is working because it's referencing the 95 from our table. But for example, if we wanted to work at 85%, it takes it down to a relative intensity of 80.8%. So that works really well. Now I should be able to just copy this over and paste it in each one of these, and it should work fine because of the way we've got our references set up. So you can see as I change the reps, my relative intensities change, and that works really well. So then the only last thing we're going to do for our formula or for our set and rep planner for this video is I'm actually now going to color code this depending on the values that we select. So the way that I want to do that is I have to create a conditional formatting that references these values and puts a color chart on it. I could do something like this where I highlight them all and put conditional formatting, color scale, and then it just highlights them all based on the values in those cells. But if I'm doing this for a programming standpoint, that's not really going to be very valuable for me. All it's going to tell me is that 80.8 is the highest percentage in this chart and 40.9 is the lowest. What I want it to do is actually reference preset values that I already have. So an easy way to do this is I'm going to create some helper cells on the side here. So I'm going to insert a bunch of columns here. Insert, insert, and then I'll insert 3 more and do that one more time and do that one more time. So I'm going to basically create these boxes over again. So what I can do is I'm just going to paste the column widths first. So I'm going to hit Control C and then go in the middle here. And if I hit right click, I can paste just the width. So you can see that it now made everything the same as we have here. And then if I paste this over, Control C, I can paste that in there and it all looks kind of the same that we had before. But instead what I'm going to do now is change these into very heavy percentage, moderate percentage, and light percentage. And I'll do that all the way through. So now what I'm going to use is an X lookup formula that actually pulls in the percentage, and then we're going to use these as our different percentages from which we color code this one off of. So the first thing we're going to work from is this if error percentage here. So I know where I want this to actually reference. I want it to look at F6 and see if that's blank. That's good, but I don't need all of this. I only need the XLOOKUP portion of this. So I always know that I'm going to get it to reference E6, so I'm going to lock the E in this case, with a $, and I don't need it to multiply by anything in this case, but I'm going to take this XLOOKUP formula and copy it over. So copy the XLOOKUP portion, Control C, and then I'm going to go over to my very heavy. When I copy this over, what it's going to look for is what is the maximum percentage for the reps that I type in, and if I change this 1 to 10, it's going to change, and so on and so forth. So from there, what I want to do is I'm going to use this formula again. I'm going to drag it over, or I'm going to, Control copy, Control paste it here, and paste it here. And then for me, if I want to make this a moderate day, I would multiply this by 85%. And for me, that would make it a moderate day. So now you can see it's 73.1. And then for this one, I would multiply it by 75%. And these are just values that I use in my training to signify a very heavy, moderate, and a light day. And I'll hit OK. And then I should be able to drag these down. And it should all work. That's good. The NAs don't really matter in this case. And I'm going to put my formatting back the way that I want it. There. Hit OK. So you can see as I type in values here, it's going to give me what my heavy, moderate, and light percentages are. I'll make these percentages just so they look better. And now if I select here and then Control copy these ones at the same time and apply that conditional formatting, things look a little bit more like I would want them to determine whether something was heavy, moderate, or light. And it's going to be individual based on the amount of reps that I choose. The only annoying part here is I have to actually go through and do each one of these conditional formattings individually. So I'm just going to finish this off quickly and show you how this works. If it bothered me about those NAs, I could easily just put it in an if error formula and it would take those away. For this case, I'm going to hide these cells anyways. It doesn't really matter. But you can see now that my lighter days are green and my heavier days are yellow. And if I was to change this to say 100%, it's going to go very red, which signifies that this is a heavy day. Whereas if we were working at something like 95% or 90 or 85, the colors are going to change according to the reps that I choose. For example, if I put in 10 here, the actual relative intensity is still going to stay the same, but if I make it 100%, you can see that it gets red again. So this is just kind of a quick explanation of how we can start to set this up. For the next video, I'm going to have gone through and just updated all the colors for the rest of these, and I'm going to do it the exact same way that I did week 1. But this will give you enough to get started on. In the next video, we'll start to calculate the stats based on the set and rep scheme that we actually put in. So if this video helped you out, please like and subscribe to the channel. You can find me on social media at DSMStrength. And again, if you want to purchase this file, I'm going to make it for sale on my website, and I'll put a link in the description below. Thanks for watching.